Hi, everyone. Today, the education community as a whole faces a universal challenge. We must ensure equitable and quality education, as well as effective and efficient evaluation of learning in hybrid, flexible, or 100% distance modalities for our students. In addition, we must plan for the post-COVID-19 pandemic era. Centers for Teaching and Learning play a pivotal function in addressing and overcoming this challenge. In the midst of the pandemic, the centers, the equivalent services, and their teams of instructional designers, teaching and learning experts, and multimedia developers became the first responders to support the pedagogical and digital transformation of all courses. Technology was the vehicle required to ensure the delivery and the facilitation of classes online, but technology alone is an empty vehicle without the content and the pedagogical approaches of faculty. The centers became the academic heroes of COVID-19. They exceeded all expectations for what they could handle in this kind of emergency. And the urgent requirement for these centers and their teams will persist until the war against the COVID-19 pandemic is won and the core of education is transformed to better meet the needs for a post-COVID era. Our research projects aim to highlight how Centers for Teaching and Learning and equivalent entities addressed and plan to address trends and issues in digital learning in the context of education disruption caused by COVID-19. The results that I will be presenting today emerge from data collected between June and October 2020 and shared through a white paper that we published, and I will be sharing the link to the white paper in the chat. Our team was composed of 8 researchers from Canada and the USA and 6 research assistants. To conduct our project, we recruited 19 centers for teaching and learning and equivalent teams from Canada, the USA, Lebanon, the UK, and France. And the size of these centers ranged between 3 and 150 staff. We engaged the directors or representatives of the centers in discussions about the practices they have employed to support online delivery of courses in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. We also collected and analyzed publicly shared resources from 78 centers or equivalent entities in 68 universities and education institutions located in 23 countries. 20 experts and researchers from the field of education and education technology contributed with commentaries and shared ideas and approaches geared to the current mandate of the centers to help them better face what was coming. The results of our research showed that the centers faced serious challenges or still facing since the eruption of the pandemic in March 2020. These challenges varied widely and have stretched the center's capacity in many directions. Some of the challenges were encountered immediately at the starts of the lockdowns, while others have presented themselves during the different phases of the transition. Some existed long before the pandemic and were multiplied by X by the current context. So some examples of these challenges that were shared by these centers said that they had to, for example, determine what constituted quality online pedagogy. They had to ensure equitable evaluation. They had to handle resistance from faculty. They had to deal with expectations from students or from faculty members. They had to ensure the communication and cooperation between departments to deal with institutional inflexibility, whether educational or governmental. They also had to determine how success looked like. And in many contexts, they had to deal with systemic racism. But CTLs or these centers also had to deal with issues encountered within the centers as they determined how to work efficiently and effectively remotely as a team. Many concerns were highlighted by the academic community, for example, academic integrity, online assessment and evaluation, student communication and student engagement in online activities, equity, accessibility, and inclusion. From the total of 68 universities and education institutions we examined, only 2.6% provided a definition of equity. In these cases, equity was defined as an approach that considers individuals' unique characteristics to provide them with differentiated support and promote equitable opportunities. In 43.6% of the analyzed cases, equity was represented by other equity-related terms, such as accessibility, inclusive pedagogies, inclusion, diversity, accommodation, equality, or a combination of terms. To our team's surprise, confusion, almost half of the institutions we examined lacked resources on equity. So that was a bit of a surprise for us. This lack of resources reveals the need for institutional policies and measures to ensure equitable learning experiences to all students in universities and institutions around the globe. Those who did brought to light the commitment and the targeted efforts of a number of CTLs were concerned in ensuring an equitable learning experience for a wide variety of vulnerable students. They set into motion a wide spectrum of initiatives, some in collaboration with government agencies, to fight inequity in online learning during the crisis. They took into consideration the condition of equity-seeking groups of students historically at disadvantage, as well as recently identified vulnerable students due to COVID-19 confinement and also with the transitioning to online teaching and learning. They recommended, and even sometimes they even strongly advised faculty to create accessible materials, to choose adequate digital technologies, to record lectures for asynchronous availabilities, to caption videos and audio content, and to schedule flexible timing for participation and assessment. Some also spread-headed initiatives to provide financial support and technical equipment to students. To end my presentation, I would like to share with you recommendations and lessons learned from these centers that they wanted to share with other centers who were going through the same challenges. So these recommendations were divided or were categorized into 4 categories. The first one was about taking care of their team so that they can take care of faculty. So they talked about the importance of sharing positive feedback they received from faculty with their team. They said that that kept them motivated, especially when the stakes were high and the morale was down. They talked about involving faculty in their team, to consider adopting a hybrid remote working approach for their team, to respect the time the team needed for an efficient and effective process, to put proper well-being policies in place. They shared that mental health was beginning to be a real challenge. They talked about the importance of valuing their team, to flatten the hierarchy, to compensate for staff gaps and low numbers with flexibility, and to implement an all-for-one and one-for-all approach within their team and with the variety of institutional units. The second category was about supporting working smarter rather than harder. So they talked about the importance of keeping things simple, about the fact that cognitive overload happens even with faculty members, the importance of being holistic and not a pigeonhole, to establish a platform that allowed them to immediately extract the needs of faculty with surveys, for example. They needed to accept that change was hard, that they had to meet the faculty where they were and to celebrate small successes. The importance also of knowing faculty members and knowing the students, to personalize and scale up the care and the aftercare, and to help faculty embrace a critical, ethical, and equitable use of digital technology. The third category was about empathy, the importance of practicing empathy with their teammates and with faculty. They talked about the importance of finding experts within faculty and within faculties and make the most of their insider perspective, to listen to faculty members, to create and nurture a safe space for faculty and inter-faculty exchanges, to remind faculty to be empathetic and patient with students and to acknowledge their efforts, to save some empathy for their team members, to listen to students, to communicate, to reassure students and faculty members and even their team members, even when they don't have the answer. It was important for them to cultivate human relationships and to find strategies to maintain faculty momentum beyond the crisis. And the last category was really focused on the leadership. And they talked about the fact that it was their time to lead and they just had to do it. So they shared that they had to shoot for the stars, but acknowledge the limitations, to stay ahead, to get ready, and to be proactive, to have a voice, to take risks, that they had the right to make mistakes and learn from their mistakes, that many valuable wheels were out there. So they had to stop reinventing new ones, to break the silos, and most importantly, to give value to teaching. Thank you.